there is a red light in my memory that will not stop blinking. It is small, the size of a thumbnail. It sits on a wooden control panel in a room nobody is sitting in. Outside that room, the corridors of Buckingham Palace are still dark. The clocks tick. The marble breathes. A constable somewhere is yawning into his sleeve. And the light blinks and blinks and blinks. Nobody is watching it. That is how it begins. My name is Elsie Hartwell. I am 83 years old now, and I have not spoken about that morning in 43 years. Not to my husband, may he rest. Not to my daughter. Not to the journalists who wrote me letters in tidy handwriting and offered me sums of money I could not, in conscience, accept. But I will speak now, because I am old, and because the last of the others have gone, and because I think the truth is owed a small landing place before I go too. This is the story of the morning a stranger walked through 775 rooms of Buckingham Palace, past the gates, past the alarms, past the men with rifles and the men with radios, past the dogs and the cooks and the footmen and the polished doors. And it is the story of how he was stopped, not by a soldier, not by a bullet, not by a shout, but by a woman in a nightdress who asked him, very quietly, if he would like to sit down. So before I begin, do me a small kindness. If you find that the story moves you, press the little button below to follow this channel, and leave a word in the comments about a moment in your own life when a soft voice did the work a loud one could not. Now let me take you back. It was the 9th of July, 1982. I was 19 years old. I had been at the palace for 3 weeks, and I was about to learn that a kingdom is only ever as safe as the people who believe its alarms. I came up from Devon on the train. My mother had sewn the lining of my coat herself because she did not trust London tailors. My father said nothing at the station. He only pressed a half-crown into my palm and turned away before I could thank him. I had been hired as a junior housemaid in the upper staff. It was, by the standards of my village, a position close to the sun. The early shift began at 6. You rose at 4. You dressed in the dark. You ate a slice of bread standing up. You walked down corridors so long they seemed to bend with the curve of the earth, and you carried with you a small wooden box of cloths and polishes, and you did not, under any circumstances, look the senior staff in the eye unless they spoke to you first. That morning, the 9th of July, I was walking the east corridor toward the linen room. It was quiet, quieter than usual. There is a kind of stillness in a great house that is not absence, it is held breath. The palace had that breath in it that morning. The clocks ticked just a little louder. The wallpaper seemed darker. I remember thinking very plainly that something was off, and then I remember telling myself I was being silly. I passed Constable Mallory at the foot of the back stairs. He was a kind man, heavy-lidded, a great mustache that he combed with his thumb. "Morning, Elsie." "Morning, sir." He had a teacup in his hand. The tea was cold. I could see the film on top of it. "Quiet one," he said. "Yes, sir." Bell went off down in the basement, twice, wiring again. I nodded. I did not know yet what a bell going off in the basement meant. I assumed it meant nothing. He assumed it meant nothing. That was the assumption upon which the entire morning was built. I walked on. In the linen room, Mrs. Coombs was already folding sheets. She was a woman of about 60 with hands that moved without her watching them. She had been at the palace since the war. She had a memory like a ledger. "You're slow today, girl." "Sorry, ma'am." "Get the upper landings. Then the corridor outside the Queen's wing. Quietly mind, Her Majesty is in. Don't go past the second door." "Yes, ma'am." I took my box and went. The Queen, you must understand, was a presence in the building the way weather is a presence in a field. You did not see her often. You felt her. You knew which wing she was in by the change in air pressure, by the quickening of the footmen, by the way Mrs. Coombs would straighten her shoulders before turning a corner. She was in residence that week. Prince Philip was away on naval business in another part of the country. The corgis were in their wicker beds. The household, in theory, was at full alert. In theory. I climbed the back stairs. I passed a long mirror. I caught my own reflection, pale, narrow, too young, and I looked away. Somewhere 3 floors below, a second alarm was ringing. Nobody was answering it. Let me tell you about the others. The people who, like me, were going about their morning while a stranger climbed the outside of the palace. There was Sergeant Bellamy of the Royalty Protection Group. He had come off shift at 6. He had walked down to the staff kitchen. He had put a kettle on. He had taken off his cap and set it on the counter and rolled up his sleeves to wash his hands, and he had said, to nobody in particular, "Cup of tea before I head home." Sergeant Bellamy was a good man. I want that on the record. He was not lazy. He was not careless. He had stood at his post for 8 hours and he was tired and he wanted tea. There is no crime in tea. But the chair he should have been sitting in, at the entrance to the upper apartments, was empty, and it would stay empty for almost 40 minutes. Then there was Mrs. Larkin, the switchboard operator. She was downstairs in a small windowless room with cables running along the walls like ivy. Her job was to take calls and route them. Her job was also, in theory, to log alarm signals. But the system that fed the alarms into the switchboard had been spotty for years. It rang at random. It rang in storms. It rang when nobody had touched a thing. She had a notebook in front of her. The notebook had a column titled Faults. The column was full. When the bell rang at 6:46 that morning, she sighed. Wiring again. She wrote it in the book. She did not call anyone. Then there was Mr. Wybrew, Paul Wybrew, the Queen's personal footman. A tall, calm, gentle man with a face like a quiet evening. He was, at that exact moment, 6 floors below, walking the corgis on the lawn. They were small and round and indignant about the dew. He spoke to them softly. He told them they were being ridiculous. He was not in the corridor, outside the Queen's bedroom. Nobody was. And then there was the Queen herself. She was asleep, 56 years old. Her reading glasses on the bedside table, a book closed beside them, a glass of water half full, a small clock ticking, a drawn curtain, a summer morning beginning to push its light against the heavy fabric. She would wake at 7:15 as she always did. She would not. On this particular morning, wake to the sound of a maid placing tea. She would wake to something else. But that is still to come. For now, let me show you the man on the drainpipe. His name was Michael Fagan. He was 31. He was unemployed. He had been a painter and decorator. His marriage had fallen apart. He had not slept properly in days. He was not armed. He was not a terrorist. He was not, in any meaningful sense, a planner. He was, by his own admission later, a man whose mind was not well, and who had become fixated on the idea of speaking to the Queen. He had climbed the palace wall using the spikes on the railing. He had crossed the gravel. He had walked in broad, early light to a drain pipe at the side of the building. He was wearing jeans. He was wearing a t-shirt. He had cut his hand on a broken window the previous time he had done this. Yes, the previous time, but we will come to that. He climbed. He was visible. He was visible from at least 4 windows. He was visible from the road, had anyone been on the road. He was visible from the camera that should have been pointed at the south face of the building, but that camera was pointed 3 degrees off and had been for 11 months. Inside, at her switchboard, Mrs. Larkin's bell rang for a 3rd time. She looked at it. Oh, do stop. She unplugged it. I want you to read that sentence again slowly. She unplugged it. That is not a metaphor. That is what happened. The 3rd alarm of the morning, which was triggered by Michael Fagan's weight on a sensor outside a ground floor window, was silenced by a kind, tired woman who had been told by her superiors that the system was unreliable and that she was not to bother the duty officer with every chirp. The system was unreliable, that was true. But on this particular morning, the system was right. Before we go on, and I promise you, what comes next is the part you are here for, let me tell you something about the alarms. I learned this later, not that morning. Years later, when I was old enough to ask the questions a 19-year-old does not think to ask. The Buckingham Palace alarm system was installed in 1938, on the eve of the Second World War. It was, at the time, considered modern. It was a network of pressure plates and wire contacts and small electric bells, connected to a central board in the basement. By the 1980s, it was a fossil. Pieces of it had been replaced, other pieces had been patched. A whole section of the East Wing was running on wiring that had been spliced together in 1952 by a man who had since died. There was no comprehensive diagram. The diagram had been lost in a flood in the 60s. The staff who maintained it kept their knowledge in their heads, and when those staff retired, the knowledge went with them. By the time of which I speak, the system rang on average 11 times a week without cause. 11 false alarms a week, for years. Now imagine that you are the duty officer. Imagine you are Mrs. Locken at her switchboard. Imagine that for every real warning, you have heard 50 that meant nothing. You stop hearing them. You cannot help it. The human ear is not built to remain alert to a sound that is lied to it 500 times in a row. This is called, in the language of those who study such things, alarm fatigue. It is the reason hospitals lose patients to monitors that nobody checks. It is the reason ships run aground while warnings blink unread. It is the reason a stranger could walk 775 rooms of Buckingham Palace on a summer morning, and nobody, not one of us, believed the bells. The wiring was not the villain. The wiring was simply old. The villain, if there was one, was the slow, polite, deeply British decision, made by no one person and by everyone, to assume that nothing bad would happen because nothing bad had happened. That is the most dangerous assumption in the world. It is the assumption every great house, every great kingdom, every great civilization makes the morning before it falls. Now back to the corridor. Back to me, 19 years old, with a wooden box of cloths in my hand, climbing the back stairs while a man in a t-shirt climbed a drain pipe. He came in through a window on the first floor. The window was unlocked. It had been unlocked for several days. A workman had opened it to let out paint fumes, and the catch had not been replaced, and nobody had walked the upper rooms with a checklist because the upper rooms were not, that week, in use. He swung one leg over the sill. He paused, he listened. The palace did not respond. He climbed in. He was, in his own words later, surprised. He had expected to be tackled. He had expected dogs. He had expected the famous royal guard to descend on him in red coats and bearskins. He had expected, at the very least, a man with a radio. He got carpet, old, deep, slightly dusty carpet. He got silence. He got a corridor longer than his street. He walked. He walked into the throne room. He looked at the chairs. He did not sit. He walked into the picture gallery. He looked at the portraits. Hundreds of years of faces stared down at him in oils, and none of them rang a bell. He found a bottle of wine in a side room, white wine. He took a long drink from the neck of it. He set it down. He kept walking. He set off 3 more alarms. One in the picture gallery, one on the stairs to the upper floor, one in the corridor outside the Belgian suite. The first was unplugged by Mrs. Locken. The second was logged by a sleepy duty constable on the ground floor who wrote, in pencil, "Wiring fault, C. Mallory." The third was heard by Constable Mallory himself, finishing his cold tea. He looked at the bell. He looked at his cup. He set the cup down. "Must be the wiring again," he said to nobody. He stood up. He walked slowly toward the basement to check. He went in the wrong direction. I want to be fair to Constable Mallory. He was not a bad officer. He had been told for 11 years that the alarms were unreliable. He had personally responded to 43 false alarms in his career and 0 real ones. He was operating on the only information he had. But he went the wrong way. And while he was walking down toward the basement, Michael Fagan was walking up. I passed him. I want you to understand this. I want you to understand it slowly. Elsie Hotwell, 19 years old, passed Michael Fagan in the corridor outside the linen cupboard at approximately 7:04 in the morning. I did not know who he was. I did not know what he was. He was wearing jeans and a t-shirt, and his hand was wrapped in a handkerchief that was slowly turning brown. He looked to me like a workman. The palace was always full of workmen, painters, electricians, plumbers, men who came and went with toolboxes and a sort of bored efficiency. He did not have a toolbox. I should have noticed. I did not notice. He nodded at me, a small, polite nod, the nod of a man who has been raised to nod at women in corridors. I nodded back. I lowered my eyes because I had been told to lower my eyes to anyone who was not staff, and I kept walking, and I did not turn around. If I had turned around, I would have seen him stop. I would have seen him look at a door. I would have seen him put his hand on the doorknob. The door was the door to the Queen's bedroom. I did not turn around. I have thought about this every day for 43 years. Let me pause again. The story is heavy now, and you have stayed with me, and I am grateful, and I want to give you something firm to stand on before the worst of it. Let me tell you about the men who were meant to be in that corridor. They are called the Royalty and Specialist Protection Command. In those days, the unit was known as SO-14. They are not the Royal Guard you see at the gates in the tall fur hats. Those are soldiers, infantry, ceremonial as much as functional. The men who actually guard the monarch's person are plainclothes police. They wear suits. They carry sidearms. They walk 3 paces behind. They sit in chairs outside doors. There was meant to be a chair outside the Queen's bedroom door that morning. There was a chair, it was empty. The officer assigned to it was Sergeant Bellamy, the man with the kettle, the man with the tea. He had not abandoned his post in any reckless sense. He had been relieved at 6 by an officer who was meant to take over for the morning shift. That officer had been called away to deal with a delivery question at the tradesman's gate. He had stepped away for, by his own honest report, 4 minutes. 4 minutes. That is how long the chair was empty. Michael Fagan walked past it in those 4 minutes. I tell you this because I do not want you to leave this story thinking that the men of SO-14 were fools or cowards or sleeping. They were not. They were tired. They were trusting. They were operating inside a system that had taught them, gently and over many years, that nothing ever happened here. Nothing ever happened here, until it did. Now let me take you to the bedroom. The Queen woke at 7:15. She did not wake to the sound of tea. She woke to the sound of a curtain being drawn. The curtain was a heavy thing, damask. It made a particular sound when it moved, a slow whisper, and she had heard that sound every morning of her adult life. But on this morning, the sound was wrong. It was being done by hands that did not know the rhythm. She opened her eyes. A man was standing by her bed. He was thin. He was bleeding from a cut on his right hand. He was holding a piece of broken glass, a sliver from an ashtray he had picked up in the corridor, no larger than a thumb. He was looking at her with an expression that, in the official report later, would be described as calm but tearful. She did not scream. I need you to understand that she did not scream. There was no bell within reach. There was no telephone within reach. The footman was outside with the dogs. The constable was 4 minutes away. The whole of the palace was held at that moment in the space between her and him. She sat up. She reached slowly for her glasses. She put them on. She looked at him. "Good morning," she said. He did not know what to say. "What is your name?" "Michael." "Michael what?" Michael Fagin. And how did you come to be here, Michael? He told her. He told her about the wall, about the drain pipe, about the window, about the wine. He told her in fragments in the broken English of a man whose mind was, that morning, badly out of order. She listened. She did not interrupt. When he showed her the piece of glass, she looked at his hand instead. You've cut yourself. Yes. That looks painful. It is. She gestured very gently at a tissue box on the bedside table. She did not move toward it. She let him move. He set the glass down. He took a tissue. He pressed it to his hand. Do you have family, Michael? He blinked. Children. 4. How old are they? He told her their ages. He told her their names. He told her with the piece of glass forgotten on the carpet that he had not seen them in some time, that his marriage was ended, that he did not know where to live, that he had wanted, for reasons he could not entirely explain, to speak to her. He began to cry. She let him. A queen in a nightdress, in the half-light of a July morning, with the curtains half drawn and a stranger weeping at the foot of her bed, did the only thing that has ever truly worked when a person's mind has come undone in your presence. She listened, she nodded. She asked another question, she kept him talking. 6 minutes passed, then 7, then 8. She asked at one point if he would like a cigarette. He said yes. She rang the bell by her bed, a different bell, an inside bell that connected to the pantry rather than to the police. The bell rang in a small room 2 floors below, where a junior footman named Charles was setting out cups. Charles came up the stairs at a normal pace. He was not alarmed. The Queen rang the pantry bell every morning. He carried a small silver tray. He opened the bedroom door. He saw her sitting up in bed. He saw a man bleeding onto the carpet by the curtains. He saw the piece of glass. He saw the wine bottle in the man's other hand. Fagin had picked it up again somewhere in the conversation. I do not know when, neither did she. Charles did not run. He did not shout. He did, however, do something for which I have always loved him in my heart. He spoke as if nothing was wrong. Your Majesty rang. Yes, Charles. Mr. Fagin would like a cigarette, and I think a glass of whiskey would not go amiss. Would you be so kind? Charles nodded. He turned. He walked out of the room at exactly the same pace he had walked in. He closed the door behind him. He walked, still at exactly that pace, to the end of the corridor. Then he ran. He ran to the telephone in the upper pantry. He picked it up. He said the words that by then were finally believed. There is an intruder in Her Majesty's bedroom. The corridor filled in less than a minute. Mr. Wybrew, the footman, came up the back stairs 3 at a time. The corgis came with him, barking like small, angry kettles. Constable Mallory came at a sprint, his mustache trembling. The relief officer, returned at last from the tradesman's gate, came with his hand on his service weapon. They opened the door. They found Michael Fagin sitting on the floor. They found the Queen sitting upright in bed. They found a piece of glass on the carpet and a wine bottle on the bedside table and a tissue, balled up and bloody, in the stranger's hand. He went without a struggle. He looked, in the moment they took him out, almost relieved. The Queen watched him go. She did not call for her husband. She did not call for her doctor. She did not, as far as anyone who was in the room reported, even raise her voice. She got out of bed. She put on her dressing gown. She walked to the bedside table. She poured herself a glass of water from the carafe. She drank it slowly. Then she said to Mr. Wybrew, who was standing in the doorway, I think I should like my tea now, please. That is the story I have carried for 43 years. I did not see the bedroom. I was not in that room, but I was in the corridor. I was the maid he nodded to. I was the small, pale girl in the linen apron who lowered her eyes and kept walking. I lived in the building for another 11 years, and I served 3 more sovereigns' worth of breakfasts, and I never spoke of it. There was an inquiry, of course. There always is. Heads moved. Procedures changed. The alarm system was overhauled in the year that followed, and a great deal of money was spent, and a great many men in suits sat in a great many rooms and asked one another how this could have happened. The answer was simple. The answer is always simple. It happened because nobody believed the bell. It happened because Mrs. Larkin was tired, and Sergeant Bellamy wanted his tea, and Constable Mallory went the wrong way, and the window was unlocked, and the camera was 3 degrees off, and I, 19 years old, did not turn around in a corridor. It happened because the system that was meant to protect a queen had taught all of us, very gently and over many years, that nothing ever happened here. But here is the thing I want to leave you with, the thing I have come back to again and again in the long quiet of being old. The system failed. Every part of it failed. The wall failed, and the gate failed, and the camera failed, and the wiring failed, and the chair was empty, and the bell was unplugged, and the maid did not look up. And in the middle of that failure, one thing did not fail. A woman in a nightdress in a half-lit bedroom looked at a stranger with a piece of glass in his hand, and instead of screaming, she asked him his name. She asked him about his children. She let him cry. She kept him talking with nothing but her own steady voice for the 8 minutes it took for help to arrive. She used no weapon. She raised no hand. She offered him a cigarette and called for whiskey and treated him for those 8 minutes as if he were a person who had simply come in by the wrong door. That is not nothing. That is, perhaps, the only thing in the whole story that worked. I have thought over the years about what it means. I am not a philosophical woman. I left school at 15, but this is what I have come to. The bravest response to chaos is not force. It is the refusal in the worst possible moment to lose your humanity. It is the choice, and it is a choice, made in a fraction of a second to see the person in front of you as a person and not as a threat. It is the steady voice. It is the offered tissue. It is the question about the children. It does not always work. I want to be honest about that. There are mornings when no question will save you and no soft voice will hold the line, and the right answer is to scream and run. I do not pretend otherwise. But there are other mornings. Mornings when the danger in front of you is not a monster but a man who has lost his way, and the only road back for him passes through being treated, one more time, as a human being. On those mornings, the soft voice does the work the loud one cannot. That is what I learned at 19, in a corridor I should have turned around in. If this story has moved you, if some part of it has settled somewhere quiet inside you, please press the button below to follow this channel and leave me a word in the comments. Tell me about a moment in your own life when somebody, somewhere, asked you the right question at exactly the right time. I read everyone. I am old and I have time. And if you have stayed with me this long, then stay with me one moment longer, because there is another story I have not yet told, a story from inside the same walls. A story about a night, 11 years after this one, when a different kind of breach happened at the palace. A breach not of a window, but of a trust, and the person who carried the consequences was not a queen, but a small man in a black coat who had served the royal household for 36 years, and who, on a winter evening in 1993, was asked to make a choice that no servant should ever,